Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So it's been a couple days now since Gary Bettman finally came out and discussed to all of the NHL fans, including myself, what is going to happen with the NHL, the current state of the league, what is happening with the 2014 playoff format, and the NHL Draft Lottery. A lot to discuss, but I'm really going to break down for you, if you haven't seen it already, the details of the NHL Draft Lottery. So this is unlike anything that has happened in the NHL before. So starting off, the lottery is going to consist of course, the 7 teams that were not eligible for the play-in rounds that are not playoffs, but close to playoffs. Whoever wins those play-in rounds, when hockey picks up, will then be in the official first round of playoffs. But those 7 teams, including, of course, the Senators, the Red Wings, the Buffalo Sabres, etc., those will all be out and eligible for the draft lottery. And the other thing, though, which is really interesting and kind of hard to wrap your head around at first, is that there will be 8 placeholder teams, which means that it will be teams labeled A, B, C, D, etc. And of those teams, they will all have a percentage chance from 6% down to winning one of those lottery picks. So what happens is, if none of those teams win a lottery pick, then there will be no phase 2 of the draft lottery. But if one of them or more wins one of those top 3 lottery picks, then there will be a phase 2 for a second draft lottery, and that'll take place prior to the NHL conference quarterfinals for the playoffs. And what that means is that all the teams that lost in the play-in rounds right before making playoffs will then be eligible to go for that lottery pick or picks, depending on if one or multiple is picked, whether it be the first, second, or third pick, etc. So if all those teams that lose, they really get a benefit out of this, as they will then have a chance to win 1, 2, or 3 lottery picks based on positioning. So if, say, it's the second overall pick that is picked by a placeholder team, that means that all those 8 teams that were that did not win the play-in round will all have a equal 12.5% chance of winning that lottery pick. So looking at this now, this does not benefit by any means the teams that are in the bottom of the league, like the Red Wings, Senators. This does not give them a better chance at all actually winning a lottery pick, because you have these placeholder teams that in total equate to 25%. And that 25% is a huge chunk that gives a heavy chance of winning one of those lottery picks, if not more than one. And then, like I said, there will be equal 12.5% chance for every team that loses in the play-in round to have a chance at winning that lottery pick or picks. So teams that benefit the most from this, easily I have to start with the New York Islanders. The Islanders really don't help the Ottawa Senators in this situation, because they, of course, traded their first round pick at the trade deadline in the J.G. Pageau trade. But the condition was that if the Isles don't make playoffs and get a top 3 pick, a lottery pick, then they will receive that first round pick and instead will give the Ottawa Senators their 2021 first round pick. So that doesn't help the Senators by any means if that happens. And it should be interesting, because the Islanders are going to have a very strong matchup against the Florida Panthers. I think that's pretty even in my opinion. But then next, another team that will benefit a lot is the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks will benefit along with the Arizona Coyotes, and I'll get to them, because they both have first round picks that are currently in the hands of the New Jersey Devils. The Canucks, because of the JT Miller trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning a while ago, in which that first round pick was then traded to the Devils in the Blake Coleman trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning. But that condition for that pick is that Vancouver does not make playoffs. And remember, the play-in rounds are technically speaking not playoffs. If Vancouver loses in those play-in rounds against the Minnesota Wild, then they will get their first round pick back, which will then possibly give them a lottery pick chance if one of those placeholder picks is chosen from the 1, 2, or 3 lottery picks. So Vancouver has a chance there, and the Devils have a possibility of losing that first round pick for this year, but they would obtain it in 2021 then. And the same thing goes with the Arizona Coyotes and the Taylor Hall trade months ago. This is where if they obtain a lottery pick, if theirs is chosen in the phase 2 round, assuming Arizona would then lose, of course, in the play-ins in order to obtain it, if they do obtain that, then that will be their first round pick. They will then give their 2021 first to the Devils. So the Devils, who currently have 3 first round picks, could very well end up with 1. Now, the likelihood of that is slim to none, but it is still a possibility, and that is why the Canucks and Coyotes still benefit from this more than others, as they have a chance to get those first round picks back, and it could be a lottery pick. And another team that benefits from this situation is the Toronto Maple Leafs, because the Maple Leafs as you probably know, traded Patrick Marleau a while ago to the Carolina Hurricanes. And in doing so, and for the Hurricanes obtaining that salary cap, the Leafs sent off their first-round pick. But there was one condition on it, and that was whether or not if the Leafs acquired a top 10 pick, they would get that 2020 first-round pick and instead give away their 2021 first-round pick to the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, how this really hurts the Hurricanes is how the New York Rangers come into play with this. The Rangers are the only team, I believe, out of all of this situation that can win their playing round against the Carolina Hurricanes and still possibly end up with a lottery pick. So how does that happen? Well, the Rangers, of course, have their own first-round pick, so if they lose the playing round, they still may have a chance at a lottery pick if one of those placeholder picks is picked in the phase one. But regardless, if they win, they could even possibly win the Stanley Cup. I don't think that's happening, but it is a possibility, and they could do that and still get a lottery pick if the Hurricanes and the Toronto Maple Leafs lose those playing rounds, of course, and the Hurricanes would if the Rangers beat them, of course, and if the Leafs lose to the Columbus Blue Jackets, then if both those picks get picked as a lottery pick, whether it be picks 1 and 2, 2 and 3, whatever it may be, then the Rangers would obtain the Carolina Hurricanes first-round pick. Because the condition that they had going back to the Brady Shea trade between the Rangers and the Hurricanes back at the trade deadline was there was a conditional pick the Hurricanes were sending off to the Rangers, and that was the Hurricanes would cough up whichever pick was worse, basically the lower pick between the two first-round picks that they have of themselves and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So if the Leafs get a top 10 pick, then take them off the board. The only pick the Rangers will be able to obtain then, I believe, is the Carolina Hurricanes. And if that is a lottery pick as well, then the Rangers get the lottery pick, and then the Hurricanes are left with not just zero picks in the 2020 first round draft, in the first round of the draft, which would really hurt Carolina. But like I said, a lot needs to go right for the Rangers' sake for that to happen, but it is a possibility. So I just want to throw that out there because there are a lot of different scenarios that can happen, of course, but those were definitely some that really were eye-opening to me. And then the last team that I have that really benefits from this, I don't think I mentioned them, was the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins benefit a lot from this too, as they are another team that, if for whatever reason they just fall and completely collapse against the Montreal Canadiens in that playing round, they could very well go for a lottery pick if one of those placeholder picks is chosen in the phase one, of course. And the reason for that is that the Penguins traded away their first round pick earlier this season for Jason Zucker. In return, the Penguins were saying in that condition for that pick is that if they don't make playoffs and if they don't make the playoffs this season, then they will keep that pick and send off a 2021 first-round pick to the Wild instead. So Penguins, for whatever reason, lose those playing rounds. They aren't technically in playoffs, which gives them their first-round pick back and makes them eligible for a possible winner for the lottery if it goes to phase two. So it's a lot to break down, and I know it might be very confusing for you watching this, but it's really interesting, though, when you think about it, how many teams are really going to benefit and really hurt from this. It's one of those things where in previous seasons, when you have teams that are really tanking, and it seems obvious that they're tanking, this looks like it was the worst possible year to do it, as the Red Wings could very well end up without a top 3 pick, as a huge 25% chance of the lottery win goes to those placeholder teams in total, 1 through 8. So that isn't good for them. Same thing with the Ottawa Senators. Even having 2 really good first-round picks, it looks like there's a possibility they won't win either. But they do have a strong chance, as in total between the 2 first-round picks they have, that equates to 25%, versus the Red Wings with only their 1 first-round pick that is around 18-point-something%. So I just wanted to throw that all out there again. It really looks like this can benefit the teams that lose in that playing rounds. So for teams that necessarily get upset and don't make playoffs, this is the year to do it. They have a very strong chance of possibly getting a lottery pick, and any chance is better than none, right? So even though I will say that for any team that loses in the playing rounds, they only have a 3% chance of acquiring that first overall pick. But I think regardless, if you're any of those teams in the playing rounds and you win a lottery pick, I don't think it matters too much if it's 1, 2, or 3, right? Because I'm sure they weren't expecting to obtain any of that to begin with. And all these conditions regarding these trades, assuming that they all stand and GMs don't change it, that can really benefit a lot of these teams and all these deals. So if you look at the New Jersey Devils, can possibly get screwed over and only end up with 1 first-round pick instead of 3. Like I said, it's a slim to none chance, but still a possibility. The Ottawa Senators might get screwed and not get their the Islanders first round pick, and the list goes on and on with all these different conditions. But that's going to conclude this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you haven't seen my previous videos, make sure you do. I'll have them right down here below for you at the end of this video. And thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't seen my previous videos, I just do consistent NHL content on things happening in the NHL now and just stuff I want to make videos on that I think you all will enjoy. And this was definitely a topic I wanted to do as soon as Gary Bettman came out with his statement regarding all the things regarding the NHL nowadays. But with all those things being said, once again, thank you all so much. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know in the comments below who you think benefits and doesn't benefit the most from this draft lottery. And let me know if you like this kind of lottery system and the overall playoff format, or if you dislike it. I would really love to hear all your feedback. Thank you all again so much, and I'll be back in a day or two.